Hey, it's Joe again. A lot of people ask me, how do you figure the return on investment of a property? And there's lots of analysis tools out there on how to figure out, whether, what the cap rate is of a rental property or how much return you're going to get and what the long-term investment value is. But I think you want to be able to compare apples to apples with your investments. So if I say, okay, I can go to Bank of America, I can put my money into a money market, and I can get 2% return on that money, or I can go into a mutual fund and I can get X return, or I can go out and buy this stock and I can get this return, and I'll have an idea of where we're at in the continuum and how my investment in real estate compares to those. Investment in real estate almost always compares favorably over those types of investments. I think the reason most people buy mutual funds and stocks is because the people who sell them those things, that's how they make money. They won't make money when they sell you investment property. They make money when they sell you stocks. And stocks are the accepted way to buy property and to put your money. But I don't believe that you have control over stocks. I don't believe you have any control over what happens in the boardrooms of these big corporations, and whether or not, first of all, that they're doing things legitimately, and if they are, whether or not they're going to do the right thing, whether they're going to make money on it. There's no way that you can know those things. And even the experts who look at these businesses and decide whether or not their values are there, and all the stock analysis that you do, they're still not going to have any control over that particular investment. Whereas with real estate, you can buy a piece of real estate, you can look at the market where that real estate is and determine whether or not you're going to be able to have income, whether it's going to be sustainable over the long term. And that's determined by rental values. Rental values can drop and you can still get a decent return on your properties if you're doing it this way. You can also get professional management that can handle these things for you, but you can take them out of the transaction anytime you want. If you feel that they're not doing a good job, you can pull them out and you can give somebody else the job to do it for you. Or you can take over and do it yourself, which is not something I would want to do. But still, there's lots of good property managers out there. And you find somebody with a license, then they're accountable to the Board of Realtors, with the ethics, and they've got to follow through with doing it a certain way. So make sure if you do get a property manager, you find somebody who's licensed or somebody who's working directly under you on a day-to-day basis. So anyway, how do you figure the return on investment for a property that you're buying long term? And here's, I think, the easiest way to do return on investment. So first you have to set aside the value of the property, or the amount that you have into it. Let's say you bought it, you fixed it up. So take the money you paid to buy it, the money you paid to turn on the utilities, the money you paid to fix up the property to get it habitable, and hopefully you had somebody else do all this work for you. Don't do work on properties yourself. Get all that stuff done. Get that total cost, then you get a tenant in there and find out how much that tenant is going to give you annually. So that tenant pays you $1,000 a month, that's $12,000 of annual income on that property, at least theoretically. There's going to be vacancies, there's going to be repairs in addition to the things that you've done eventually, so there is going to be some reduction in this. But let's get to that in a second. So you got $12,000 a month coming in. Now, you got to subtract from that $12,000 a month your property taxes. So let's say your property taxes on this property are $2,000. So now you got $10,000. And you've got a property manager handling the property for you, and let's say they're going to cost you 10% of your rent, so they're going to be $1,200 on that. And then you're going to have insurance on that, so let's say that costs you $400 a year, so you get insurance, landlord insurance on the property in case it burns down or if there's some other problem or there's some liability. Also covers liability insurance. And you subtract that as well. So you're subtracting taxes, insurance, property management, and then ultimately you're going to add some repairs in there. But instead of adding the repairs in there, I'll take that, I'll subtract it from the income, and then I'll take that sum, let's say it's $8,000 that's left, and I'll divide $8,000 by the amount I paid for it. So if I paid, let's say, $32,000 for that property, that means if I divide that 32,000 into the 8, I'm going to get 25%. So I've got a 25% return on my investment if I paid $32,000 for that property. 25% return. Now then you've got to figure in the other costs like vacancies, like other repairs, things like that. Out of that 25%, you're probably going to have between 1 and 4% extra costs. If you figure that out of the income that you get, you're probably going to get between 70 and 100% of the actual income. I think it probably averages in my property is about 90% of the income, not including the taxes and insurance and property management. 90% of the income actually comes to us that we expect to come to us. And so the return, we base our return based on that. Now that's the easiest way for me as an investor to look at this. There's also going to be additional income that I'm going to get on these properties. I'm going to get the depreciation, which I talked about earlier, which is going to reduce my taxes. It's going to save me real money on my taxes. I'm going to get appreciation on the property. The values are going to go up over a period of years. Hopefully, that will become a reality again. And then I'm also when I buy these properties, hopefully I'm going to buy some equity into those properties. So maybe I buy 20, 30, 40% of equity into those properties when I bought it. If I paid $32,000 for it, if it's real market value, just 2 years ago was another 48, let's say it was 48,000, that means that I got an instant, 20, 30% of equity right away out of that deal, and I could figure that into my return. But I don't like to do that with the value because it's so hard to tell what the values are, especially right now. Maybe a few years from now, I'll be able to look at values and say, wow, that's how much we paid for it, and that's what it's worth now. I like to go back right now and look at the prices that people were paying for them just 2 or 3 years ago. If you look at those numbers, that'll give you a pretty good idea of where it's going to come back to over the next 4 or 5 years. At least that's my theory. Alrighty, so that's how to figure the return on investment for cash flow properties if you're doing cash deals. And if you're interested in buying these kind of properties where you can get 15 to 18% return on your investment, and you want to buy some of the ones that I've got for sale, and let's say you don't have more than $50,000 you want to invest, I can help you. I can help you buy multiple properties too. I've got people that come in and buy 4, 5, 10 properties from me at once. And we put them into basically we create a whole retirement program for them. But they've got cash to invest, and you're going to need anywhere from $25,000 on the cheaper end stuff that we've got up to about $100,000 if you're buying multiple properties. All right, hope that helps.